one of the things I was okay with that I liked about certain examples of the genre is that when I died, it felt like it was my fault, not the game's. Hellpoint got to a point where I started to feel like I was failing because the game was made badly. We had an episode suggestion from Dadam, the one and only. Dadam writes, suggestion, games, video or otherwise, that seem good to you on paper, right genre, setting, good reviews, popular, etc., that just didn't work for you. That's a lot to take in, isn't it? Because
a little bit.
When I don't like a game that I thought I was going to like, I then have to work out in my head why I didn't like it, which makes me really good for this question. You, on the other hand, really just want to play the game, and if you don't like it, you just put it down and just go on to the next thing.
I play games as a form of enjoyment, entertainment, and relaxation, so if I don't like a game, I stop playing it. I don't take the time to really analyze it. That's not a thing I do in my daily life. I consume a lot of media, YouTube especially, where I just kind of listen and I don't sit there and analyze it, which is why it's fun that I listen to a lot of video essays and let other people analyze things.
Yeah.
My least favorite thing in school was always when they were like, hey, we need you to read this book and then write a paper about what this book means. And I was like, now I don't enjoy the book. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say that, even though I do quite a bit of analysis, on the stuff that I put together, sometimes I like to be able to play games where I don't have to think too much about them.
Yeah, that's most of the time for me.
Yeah.
But I still think, but usually it's just about, what can I do to enjoy myself more?
Right. But at any rate, getting back to the question that Dadam had is, if we could come up with some examples of games that we really should have liked that we didn't. I wanted to choose ones that were in genres that I actually enjoy, so that it made it clear to me why I didn't like these. So the first one I have is a Metroidvania. And Metroidvanias as a genre is one of my all-time favorites. So it's kind of tricky. To give me one is to almost automatically make me like what you've given me. I'll want to enjoy it. But one came out just this last year, definitely seemed like it had everything going for it, and was in that genre, and really fell flat for me, to the point where I think I only played it for an hour and a half. And that was called The Last Case of Benedict Fox. It was a Metroidvania that was also trying to be a little bit Lovecraftian in its theming. You play Benedict Fox, you go to this manor house that has all of these puzzles that are going on, a lot of codes and mysteries to solve, locked drawers that you need to unlock. But then there is this Cthulhian world, a cosmic horror world with a lot of tentacles and stuff that you enter into, where we actually have combat. All of that sounds pretty great, right? We've got our 2D, really well designed in terms of the look and the feel of the game. All of that works, the aesthetics of it and the graphic design and everything, very engaging right up at the front. And it's in an interesting genre until you actually play the game, because once you actually play the game, you start to realize that you have a bit of a problem. There's this disparity between walking around the manor house, where there's just a bunch of codes, which I figure if I could have just looked it up online, I probably could have unlocked the entire game and just gotten the cheat codes for all of these things and probably finished the game in no time. But there's locked drawers and stuff, and so you have to go into the Cthulhian, world. But instead of focusing on the exploration part, they really want you to go in more of a linear direction to your objective through platforming, etc. And then when you actually engage with enemies, they decided to take I'm going to call it an interesting approach to combat, which is where you do a lot of melee, but you do have a ranged option. Your ranged option is you have a revolver. So now you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is good. I got a lot of options when I get into combat. Except they decide to do something that I just still to this day I scratch my head on this. Your revolver has one bullet. After you use that bullet, you don't reload it. You have to get a melee attack in to get a bullet back. So I have to get up close and make a melee attack so I can get my ranged attack.
Okay.
And then when I use my ranged attack, I have to melee something again to get it back. So there's this disparity, because if I'm trying to do ranged combat, I'm probably not in a position to go up close in melee, which you find out in the very, very first boss, which is a couple tentacles off to the side that just do AoE attacks that are basically the entire arena. And so I have to, like, jump around, try to aim and hit with my one bullet, and then figure out how to get up close to the tentacle monsters that are just doing these waves of force, so I can get a melee in, so I can get the one bullet back, so I can try and hit the monster again. And it was very quickly a scenario where I was like, I can't play this game. Like, it really just became a scenario where I was just like, I don't understand why the game functions like this. I don't understand why the combat works like this. There's not a ton of the exploration part. And I don't like the way that this advances, and I don't like the disparity between, like, the real world and then going into these different portals into the other world. And it's not working for me. Maybe they'll fix it one day, but I'm going to put it down because I don't want to play it right now. And so that's exactly what I did. And I never went back to it after that, nor do I think that they have actually done any updates to it since I played it.
I feel like, especially for you, where you, like, even with your RPGs, you like the open worlds a lot more. I feel like having any game that's linear in that fashion probably wouldn't be something you liked.
Yeah, and it's been one of my contested problems with a lot of Souls-likes and how they try to, maneuver you around and go to the other side to unlock a door and things. But, like, Metroidvanias, though, I like open worlds, but I really do like Metroidvanias for the fact that they give you this idea of unlocking new abilities so that you can go and uncover new areas and new secrets that you didn't see before. And it's a very well-paced risk and reward system that they set up in the way that they frame it. But yeah, Last Case of Benedict Fox was not that. It was not that.
So as we touched on earlier, I play games mostly for entertainment. I try not to deep dive into them personally, like for analysis in the same way you do. But a series we've talked about before, I generally don't like Souls-likes. Mm-hmm. Just the way they do their stuff isn't typically too slow, too methodical for what I'm looking for in a game. But I've always been interested in the Dark Souls series. Mm-hmm. Because the world building is great. The lore is fantastic. I like the way you have to actually, like, dig into the items' descriptions to find out some of the lore. Mm-hmm. I think so much of what the game does for the storytelling is really cool.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I've listened to many a video about Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But the things the game does in the sense of the traversal we've talked about, the way you do your combat, how, I don't want to say challenging, but punishing it is.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
And I've put probably a dozen hours into, I think, Dark Souls 3.
3, yeah.
And probably at least a dozen hours into Dark Souls 1, and it's just, I can't... It's a get good game, and I understand that, but I don't have the patience to get good. If I'm already 12 hours in and I'm not getting better, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that really frustrated me out of the gate in Dark Souls, the first Dark Souls, is there's these two paths that you can go down after you get to that first, sanctuary, the first bonfire, and I immediately, I want to go to the graveyards there on the left, and you realize...
Which is not the path you should be going in.
No, in fact, it's practically... They make it very clear to you very quickly that this was a terrible idea, and you should never, ever do it. Right out of the gate.
I still persisted.
Yeah, I still persisted. I mean, I guess you can, but I decided that it was just going to be a slog. Yeah, Souls-likes are, very hit or miss for me, and sometimes I get very excited about them. I recently tried a few demos for, some that are upcoming that I'm very excited about. And,
and I've played a couple that are okay, I guess. Neo, I played a bit. I didn't ever finish it, but, I did play a handful of hours in Neo and enjoy it, but, I haven't got back to it.
Right.
And I tried the Surge 2, which, again, was interesting, but I didn't like the traversal, and I didn't go back to it.
Yeah, yeah.
But, just the way Dark Souls and FromSoft presents their gameplay is usually really interesting. Again, the lore is really cool, the Firekeepers and all of that, all of their bosses. The other thing I don't like is it's a really just... boss fights. Lots and lots of boss fights. I think for Elden Ring, for instance, there's 130 boss fights you can get into or something like that. Don't quote me on that.
I think a lot of them are optional, but yes, they're scattered. They're scattered. Yeah. I do have to say, though, that at some point I do want to play Elden Ring, only because I think that the idea of trying to turn it into an open world so that it's not the progression paths that the older games had in the series might actually be useful to me. It might actually make me happier trying to open it up. And
from all accounts, Elden Ring is apparently the better one to get people into the games from.
Yes.
By all accounts that I've heard, it is a lot more forgiving or a little easier in the way it presents itself, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never really been a huge Souls fan anyways, but I definitely have tried couple dozen hours in the Souls, Dark Souls. It's just not one I can really get into as much as I would like to be able to play it and go, yeah, I killed this really hard boss,
Yeah.
That's not my general genre that I would be into.
Right.
But, it's a game on paper,
sure,
I like the idea of it a lot.
Right.
But in practice, I can't. Gonna have to get mods that make it so monsters I fight die in one hit so I can play it.
Right. Yeah, the attrition part of a lot of it ends up being problematic for me. Besides Neo, can you think of any that were in that genre that you actually did enjoy that were...
Not really. I tried Code Vein as well. You said you kind of enjoyed it, I think you said.
It was okay. I liked it. I liked Code Vein mostly because it was faster. The combat's a lot faster.
It is faster. I didn't like it though. Just in general.
Yeah.
And the story wasn't that great either. From the beginning, very predictable that the person they were talking about, the Blood Queen or something like that, I don't remember. It's been months.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's my character. That's me. That's who they're talking about. I've lost my memory and they're talking about this Blood Queen. Definitely me.
I haven't seen this plot device before.
Yeah.
I like that they had a hub area that you could go to and that they had fast travel points. But yeah, there's this point where you get to the Alabaster Tower. Since we're on games that should have worked, you get to this Alabaster Tower, and it's just this giant maze of a castle up in the sky, and it's at that point where it's most of my time is trying to figure out how I traverse this giant freaking thing, and it's not entertaining anymore at that point. I lost my interest. On that note, I actually did have a Souls-like that was on my examples that I'll talk about now since we're on the subject, because I do like quite a few of them, as I mentioned, but Hellpoint I thought I was really going to like, because it's set on a space station and it's got a lot of mysticism to it, a lot of, alien style horror kind of stuff going on to it. when you actually start playing the game, it feels clunky by comparison to a lot of the Souls games. Much floatier in the boss battles, in the combat, all of it. It just doesn't feel connected. One of the things I was okay with that I liked about certain examples of the genre is that when I died, it felt like it was my fault, not the game's. Hellpoint got to a point where I started to feel like I was failing because the game was made badly. Like, I would get to the... where did I piece out? It was the 2 initiates or whatever, and there's one that has, like, this big area, fuck you, ranged attack that just, like, puts a giant ball of energy and just shoves it through the entire arena. And then the other one has this like ball and chain sort of thing where it comes up to you and starts swinging away. I think I talked about it, boss battles that I hated at one point.
Probably.
But when I started to like go, oh, I might have a strategy for this, it was, I'll go behind this barrier, and then I'll try to deal with the melee character, and then the boss that has the ranged attack won't be able to hit me, and I'll try to stay back there. Except that then the game decides, actually, when we feel like it, the area attack goes through that barrier and hits you anyway. But you have to be in the right spot. It might not, but it might hit you. And we're also going to switch up these attacks on you, just at random, while you try to focus on 2 different characters at the same time, and you can only auto-target one. And and eventually I'm like, nope, screw this, not doing this, not playing this. I'm fine when the games try to convince you, like, no, there's a pattern to this, there's a way to do this, there's a strategy here, you gotta figure out what that strategy is. Recently, I tried Lies of P, the demo, and there's the Circus Master in that, and I had to do it a lot of different times, but then once you start to get down to the attack patterns, and what he's going to do, and how you deal with him, and the best stuff, you can beat him, But,
the issue I have with doing that in a game is that, especially if it's a game you're gonna play through like maybe once probably, unless you try different run-through methods, is if I'm spending an hour trying to learn one boss's attack pattern and I'm never gonna use that again,
right,
then it's almost like a waste of time to me. Like, I get in like World of Warcraft, for instance, if I'm learning a boss fight, but I'm gonna repeat this boss fight like every week for the next 4 weeks, as raiders and people who do high level content would do,
right,
then it's a little different because you're putting in the time to learn all the mechanics of the fight, their pattern. Like, they may not have a pattern, but they have mechanics, so you're learning each of the abilities, the things they do, what you need to watch out for, what you need to like do. So you're learning like a dance, but it's like an improv dance.
Yeah.
So that one is a little more understandable to me because I'm gonna do it more than once. But if it's a boss fight, kill the circus ringmaster, never fighting him again.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. It's an interesting observation because I think that is a difference between like the ones in that genre that work for me and the ones that don't, is where you end up with a situation where you'll never have to deal with this again. But what they, like, Lies of P is actually an example, I'd say, where, like, when you start to do those boss battles and you start to learn different attack patterns and things you can try, that they do try to implement that continuously throughout the game. Like, one of the first initial, like, sub-bosses ends up being a character that you would encounter out in the wild as further bosses down the road, and even other examples. You can benefit from figuring out the framework of that battle that was before, so they utilize it. But yeah, in Hellpoint though, I'm never gonna deal with like the Spectre Beast again, and chances are every strategy I used on him I'll never have to deal with again. Alright, I think we've spoken our piece on Souls-likes. I do have one other thing that I wanted to talk about, which was a game I played very recently, and it's in a genre that I like, which are the cozy games. Cozy games are great.
They're hit and miss for me.
Yeah, no,
They're
I
really
understand.
hit or miss with me.
Yeah. A few of my absolute favorites are, but I can understand why some of them don't work for you, especially if they get boring.
A lot of times for me, the cozy games I don't like are the 2D or 2.5D.
Oh, okay.
For instance, just I don't know, something about just walking around like you do in Stardew Valley
Right.
on that flat map is not engaging to me at all.
Sure. I understand that. I think it's the scaling of it, like how games of that type will scale and will, continually ramp up as you go through. So games like a Spirit Fair or a Stardew Valley will work for me because they do a good job of scaling up as time goes on. However, the one that I just played, Lemon Cake,
Saw you playing that.
does not really do that, because for all intents and purposes, this is like made for me. I mean, it's a cozy game, and the whole idea of Lemon Cake is that you get an abandoned bakery, and there is a cooking ghost mama, essentially, that's there trying to explain to you how you do baking. And they get you into the kitchen, and you have an oven that's up and a few others that are broken, and you have a couple ingredients. You have like your flour and you have your sugar, and the ghost cooking mama teaches you how to make like a baguette and how to make a sweet roll. And you put the stuff into the bowl, you mix it up, you pop it into the oven, and you get your sweet roll and stuff, and then you can serve it to customers when they come in. And this should work great. You've got your little store, you've got a little garden out back, so that when you buy trees and stuff in the upgrades, you now have access to different resources, so I can have blueberries and stuff. But the problem that it ends up having that makes it such a grind is that it doesn't scale very well.
Okay. I thought it was because you were getting ratatouille'd by a cooking mama's ghost, but
Well, I mean, I guess there is that too, but it's the scaling of it. Like, for instance, I can only carry one thing at a time.
Oh.
And I can only I can only make a recipe for one object at a time. So, like, if I say I want to make a sweet roll, I can only make the recipe for the one sweet roll and put it into the oven. I can't, like, make multiple sweet rolls at a time and then try to cook multiple ones at the same time. When I put them out on display, when you unlock the different displays, I have to put one item on the display. And when it sells, I have to then go and get another one and run it out and put the next one on. They give you the garden so that you can get, your blueberry and your cocoa plants and everything. But when I go over to the garden, I can only carry the one thing, my one blueberry, carry it back for my recipe, and then if I need another thing, I have to go back to the garden, I have to grab the next thing, and bring it back so I can make one object.
Sounds like a lot of padding out.
It is a lot of padding out. I started to think maybe this gets better because they could give you a table, and it's like, oh, I could prepare stuff and put them on the table. Well, when you unlock the table, you can put one item on the table. You have no inventory.
Is it a tiny table?
It's a tiny little table off to the side. Then they give you a kitchen. You pay a lot of money for, like, a kitchen counter. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, then I can just... this is going to make it a lot easier to put things out on display. Oh, great. So I can put the items on the kitchen counter, and they'll go out into the display. No, they're just going to stay there. You can only put one item on there, and then you have to go out into the store anyway, and then take it from that counter to put it onto the displays. So you've saved me a second, maybe?
So what you're saying is they made baskets that can hold multiple items and rolling racks which can hold trays of items?
They don't have those. Those don't.
Yeah,
those don't
I'm starting to see where the issue is with the baking.
Yeah,
is that they're doing it very inefficiently.
Yeah. Here's where it gets worse, though. I'm sorry to tell you, but you have your cafe, and you have people that will sit down, and you have 2 seats basically, and you can eventually get another table with 2 more seats. But you have people that sit down, and they put in an order of whatever happens to be on your menu. And then when they order, there is now a timer underneath. Oh. And if you take too long, the amount that they'll pay for it and how happy they are with your service is going to decrease.
Right.
And
it's
it
pretty
does
standard.
Worse. Yeah. but I need baking time, and I can only make one thing at a time. So, unless I have them prepared somewhere on my one little table, or the displays that I've unlocked that people haven't bought from, I have to, like, go through the process of getting all the ingredients once they order it, and putting it into my oven, and waiting for the oven timer to go around and finish, so that I can run the one thing out to the table before, like, the bar goes down too far. It wouldn't be a problem if they didn't add the time mechanic into this thing, where obviously time is not on my side for so much.
Yeah.
Of this.
I mean, maybe if you had a second oven, you could cook one while you got the other.
You eventually unlock 2 more ovens, but again,
Okay.
I have to prepare the whole thing and then put it into the other oven. And then if I take out my thing too late, it burns. So now I have to manage 2 different ovens. In the meantime...
It's like being a line cook.
Yeah. In the meantime, I think the problem is that it should have had an inventory where I could hold stuff. If I want to sweep up the floor, because now there's a bunch of flour on the floor that, propagates, I have to go to the corner, pick up the broom, and then sweep up the stuff on the floor, but I can't hold anything else until I put the broom down. So I have to put the broom back before I can hold on to anything else. It's this thing where, like, man, if you just had pockets, and I could just put stuff in pockets, or a table, or something.
That's what they make trays for.
Yeah, or like...
I've worked in a kitchen, so...
Yeah. But they do. It's the tedium that gets into it, where I did an experiment after all of this, where I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try something. I'm going to take every item off of my menu, except for the marshmallow twist. I was
going to say, just prep one item.
Exactly. And the marshmallow twist just takes your sugar, you put the sugar in the bowl, you don't need to bake it. I don't need the ovens at all. You put the sugar into the bowl, you mix it in the bowl, you have a marshmallow twist. And so I made that the only item on the menu. You don't get bonuses for, like, your tips and stuff because you don't have a big variety or anything. But it's considered a vegan option and a gluten-free option. So I just know I'm going to make all of those. So I put all of them out onto the displays, I put them on a table, I'm holding on to one. And as people come into the thing and they're, like, sitting there looking at the menu, I'm just holding a marshmallow twist in my hands, waiting to hand it to them. And the second the order comes in, here, and shove it in their face. I get full credit, perfect order. Going back, making another marshmallow twist. And what I found is the amount I made at the end of the day was not significantly less than when I was trying to run around doing, like, all the other stuff, even though it was a low-cost item. And it was at that point where I was like, yeah, the problem is that it's the grind. You make like $20 or $30 a day in profit, and the bigger upgrades are going to cost like $200, $300 or something. So I've got to just do this day in, day out to afford like one more plate in a display case so I can put one more item out for people to look at. And why am I doing that? So... the idea was cool. I thought to myself, maybe it'd be like Tavern Master, but it is not like Tavern Master.
Have you played Cooking Simulator?
Yes, I did that on air, remember? We did that.
Right. So you're looking for something more like, oh, you've got 2 orders in, but you can also cook multiple things all at the same time, and here's all of your ingredients.
Well, you understand why I focused so much on soup when I was doing Cooking Simulator.
You could prep up a whole thing of soup.
I could do a whole thing of
soup
soup
at a time.
Exactly. I need like a lemon cake, but it's with soup. I need lemon soup.
But the thing with when you played Cooking Simulator is that you could have multiple soups on.
Oh yeah, you absolutely could.
So
you could. So I liked the concept, but at the end of the day, it's like I'd love to be able to experiment with different recipes instead of having set ones. I guess I'm just gonna wait till Haunted Chocolatier comes out. Eric Barone, when's that coming out? So I can play.
There you go.
Maybe. I'm hoping that I can make multiple chocolates at the same time, Eric. Concerned Ape will have my back, I'm hoping. So, Dadam, those were a few examples that we had of games that really should have worked for us, but ended up not working at all. Because theoretically, in theory, yeah, those should have all been good for us, but 'twas not to
Probably.
be. Yeah, 'twas not to be. But I guess I would ask folks out there if you have any examples of a game that, for all intentions, are right up your alley in terms of gaming, but end up not really working for you in the end. Give us some examples down in the comments. I'd like to know about them.